Jennifer Cruz-Esteves, and I am the Associate Director of Communications and the Professional Networks here at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And part of my role entails not just communications, but really a level of workforce development that includes diversity and inclusion, talent development, and pipelining learning development. Say beginning at the chamber and growing, it's definitely one of those things where I came in as a coordinator and I didn't really understand the processes and kind of what it really took to grow in your position, right? Because most of us know we're going to be in a cubicle and we're going to work really hard, but really leveraging that and being a strategic leader and a thought leader was definitely one of those pivotal career moments where I had to really figure out how do you go from the cubicle to that next office or to that next career point. For sure, I will say that stats, for instance, time and training, and when I say that is, how do you measure the level of training that you are giving your employees? How do you measure their responses to it, and really how that is affecting the bottom line of the company, engagement, things of that nature. I think statistics are becoming a much more focused area for HR. The second one would be growth. I would say resources, innovation, and team. And when I say that, what I really mean is that resources in reference to how will you measure and how will your team really play a role in that being your HR team. Innovation in nonprofits is very easy for people to either leave right away or stay for a very long time. So how do you foster innovation within your HR team? And with that too is having small teams. So when I say resources, I don't just mean analytical tracking, but also the time and how much your team can work without being overworked. I will say FMLA related issues because the government is the government and the military is the military, so we are separate from whatever goes on in the workplace. But we still have to take into consideration what FMLA is and what it means to people in the military. So women may get a certain amount of maternity leave, but what does that really mean for men in the military, right? Because in the civilian world, men usually have a certain amount of maternity leave as well. Outside of that, I will say issues affecting women overall. So 3 years ago, the military put a standard for hair that necessarily wasn't fair to ethnic women and women with ethnic hair, may they be African American or Hispanic or whatever the case may be, and being people who do have to be in tactical environments or train for tactical environments. How does that really affect them in those environments, and how does that affect their level of training? You can't have hair in your face, but you also can't braid your hair. And then the second one I will say is sexual and racial biases and harassment. The military, we all have a culture of like we are one. However, sometimes you see those external biases come out in conversations and things like that. Really, how do you approach that? And then sexual, there are a lot of things going on in the military with sexual harassment right now, how to approach it and train for it. And I'm not sure that the training that's being done right now is the best level of training. However, at least they've taken that first step to approach it. Now, where do we go from there? I will say measurements, internal and external initiatives. A lot of the times HR departments aren't only focusing on hiring through their internal resources, being that they just post a job on their webpage, right? Or seek within their team who may be the next person for that position. But also leveraging and using their external resources for that, and those initiatives that play into that may be a staffing firm or tapping into some of the companies that work with their D&I departments. I will say also engagement, the growth of people in career and culture. So how do you grow your workforce within, and their skills, and really leverage their skills for what the company needs, but also focus on their career and making them feel like there are paths and there's a place for them within growth in their career there, right? So how do you go from being at the cubicle to the C-suite, and knowing if that's even an interest, and then culture, really fostering a culture that is reflective of what the company wants, but also is in tune with what the employees need. And then external partner relationships, which I think I touched on a little bit. I'm not speaking on behalf of Comcast or Aramark by any means, so I'm a part of the Hispanic Chamber, but being someone that works really closely with D&I in those spaces, I will say Comcast, they are very large, and their D&I department is on traditionally large. So with saying that, some of their D&I people are focused on their workforce, while others are focused on their employee resource group, while others are focused on an overall umbrella of D&I, and they know how to all come to the table and address kind of that next year plan or that next 5-year strategy, and really zone in on what may be working and what may be an area of growth. And I think that's what's made a lot of their initiatives across the company really successful, because they have things like multicultural marketing and other aspects of the company, and really the D&I department seems to be playing a really big role in those other areas that would be multicultural and things like that, from my experience. The other one is Aramark. They are smaller, but they have branded themselves as an organization that's really focused on diversity and inclusion. In being a smaller team, I think sometimes you have to look at what's working for you, and what they've managed to leverage really well is their employee resource groups and the external relationships their employee resource groups bring in order to facilitate what the D&I department may need or may want from an external resource, and how to really bring that into the company and be reflective of that culture in the company. So those are my two examples, just because one is really big and one is on the smaller scale, but they're both doing really good jobs. Understanding the employees' needs and wants. What do the employees need to feel like there's a place for them here, and what are their wants also in that. Outside of that, I will say a big one is, how do these things affect the bottom line? Because at the end of the day, a company wants to focus on culture and what the employees need, but how it affects the bottom line and how it affects it positively is always going to play a major role in all of that, which is why a lot of companies are going from ERG groups to business resource groups to really highlight that business part of it in the executive board level. And then outside of that, I will say brand awareness. If you have a company that is known for its inclusivity and culture, it's really an easy way to brand yourself as a leader in the space of not just what the services your company provides, but the level of employees that feel committed to that company. Leadership and team transitions. When I first started here, I was really fresh out of, or it's still in college, kind of pivoting out. And I don't know that I necessarily used my leadership strengths all the time. I was always kind of waiting for what was that next thing, and I had to start kind of taking that initiative to say, not just this is done and I should move on to something else, because that's I think common sense, but saying this is done, how can it be done better with limited resources because of all the transitions. Also responsibility and understanding like the value of what's within something that you're doing, and leveraging that extra work to really add value to what you bring to the company, but also that next level of leadership that you're going to take, that role in the company. And I really know that plays a lot into what you're willing to do and that extra work that you may be willing to take on at your company, but also being really focused on what you would like for your next role to look like. Join organizations and volunteer at places that are relevant to to your values, but also your career. So if you are really interested in Habitat for Humanity, that's great, and that's more of an internal focus, right? But maybe some of your focus can be in volunteering for their HR department, you know what I mean? So leveraging both of those things that you really love and want to combine. And then outside of that, I will say, taking every opportunity you can to network and gain new skills. Sometimes you may, right now, communications is really big in HR. People are hiring people in communications that have no HR experience, and those two things can really be coupled if you decide to take an internship at a communications firm under HR, but also learn how communications works, or analytics would be another example. So making sure that you're leveraging all those opportunities well. I think there's two. So when I first began here, because of all of the transitions, there were no clear pathways to what needed to be done next, because it was really important to some of our commitments internally to some of our stakeholders and whatnot. And one of them was like a youth summit. We were supposed to start the branding and really outreach and all of these things, and getting our corporate partners from HR departments involved, and I wasn't aware of that, and because of that I kind of let it go. And at the end, what I did is I turned the youth summit into something that really grew and not only provided revenue for our organization, but also began to bring in more recognition and kind of highlighting the Chamber's brand. So I implemented a career fair, just because a college and career fair, just because A, the youth summit needed it, B, it would bring in revenue, but C, it would meet that goal of bringing in those organizations that we needed into the youth summit. Although it was late, it was very attractive, so it was easy to do that. And then outside of that, I will say, just that's right, something small. Sometimes you could take something that you did that necessarily may have been viewed as a mistake into something that is going to be leveraged long term and really grow with the organization. That's what happened there. So how can you make a mistake profitable, valuable, and bring resources into an organization? The other thing is, I think, identifying your role and owning it. When you start moving up in the career ladder, it's sometimes hard to transition into that leadership position, and you have to make it known to those around you that this is yours. And in doing that, it can be really hard, because you're going now from a task-oriented employee to a strategy-oriented employee. And I wouldn't say it was necessarily a mistake, but something that I would hope that through this interview other people can avoid doing, is really sitting down with your boss saying, these are the things that I'm owning, not just because it's in the new job description or role, but because it's important to the organization, and this is the process that I'm implementing for all of these, and this is how I plan to grow all of this, and making sure that everyone on the team understands that as well. So I will say that's the second one.